I'll take up the questions. So just a moment. Yeah. So Professor Hoffman, hope you are able to hear me. Kindly.
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah, thank you. So the first question that we have, are there any methods to determine whether two or more flavors will play well with each other in a food drink, especially when we are adding the flavors? So how are they going to interfere with each other?
They do not interfere chemically, but they it's like what I showed with the complementary order codes. Each compound in such a mixture plays, or like an orchestra, plays a certain tone. But the music only comes if all the compounds that are present here play in the right balance. And this is the same for order. So it's still not completely possible to predict how the overall flavor will be perceived just from the compound mixture point of view. What we can do now, because this is what we know, we can sort of say to predict from the chemical code what type of food you may perceive. But it is difficult still to say, is it then too fruity or not fruity enough? That only can be done by additional quantitative studies and also some psychological work that we are going to do at the moment.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts, Professor Hoffman. So the next question that we have, how do you select your flavors such that they are complementary to each other rather than entirely different? So in your studies, how did you choose your flavors?
No, we just started the work with very different flavors to grasp a wide, large chemical space, so to say, which we have in nature. As you've seen, we work on tea, on alcoholic beverages, on crustaceans, very different, in order to be sure that the chemical space we have is not too narrow, but we really grasp the entire space. That's important.
Yeah. Thank you. So then we have a lot of questions, but again, I like to take this. Is it possible that an odorant is also a contaminant?
I wouldn't call it contaminant, because a contaminant for me is nothing that should be present in a food. What is known that if you have some of the odorants in very high concentrations, so this is 100-folds, 1,000-folds above the levels you have usually in food, that they have that they may be toxic or have other side effects. That's for sure, because each chemical in a food is critical at a certain level, but the dose makes the difference. And as you see from the concentrations, all the odorants are present. The kefir odorants are present in very, very, very low concentrations. And this is why, when it comes to any side effects, the odorants, I would not, in natural concentrations, I wouldn't consider them as contaminants. It may be if you add some of those in excessive levels.
Yeah. So the concentration has a major role to play here.
Yeah, it's key.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but the point is, and that's why if you add from a certain compound too much, you will completely spoil the flavor profile. Nobody would consume the food anymore.
Yeah. Moving on to the next question, Professor Hoffman, can you shed some more light on the odor color codes? Like what information can be extracted from such codes?
From these codes are important. There are many things what you can do with it. You can use it more for fundamental research and use the codes now to see how is this code translated into the odorant receptor code in our nose. This is what is currently running. So we want to see, this is the code in a food, and on the various hundred of odorant receptors, what is the mirror image, so to say, on the side of the biology. And this is done, but on the other hand, you can use the code, as I showed here, to go through our processing conditions and see exactly where in my process, when I produce a beer, for example, or a wine, can I change my parameters to even optimize my flavor code, and then to get a better flavor out.
Yeah. So thank you, Professor Hoffman. So we have one attendee asking a question. Just wondering, what would you say are the significant research gaps or potential research areas relating to chemosensory systems? So he just trying to have your insight on the research gap that is in the chemosensory systems.
For me, the research gap is still what I just said, is in particular, if you take it now to the side of the biology, because the chemical world, I think, is quite nicely identified now. The next step would be how we transform it on the order and receptor level. And from the order and receptor level, how is that translated into a brain signal? So the next step would be now to take those codes, to take these compounds, do order and receptor screening assays, see the chemical code is transformed into a biological code of order and receptors, and how can that, so to say, be translated in psychological impacts.
Yeah.
So that moves us into a world of molecular biology and medicine.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Hofmann. So we are left with 1 minute more. So Professor Hofmann, may I ask you to give answer to 1 or 2 more questions? Are you comfortable with it? Should I go?
I'm fine.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So the question is there any data on odor changes during rotting process?
Could you repeat it?
So is there any data on odor changes during the rotting process when a food contaminates, it degrades into the process? So rotting process.
Yeah, rotting process. Yeah, in such a process, definitely the odorants change massively. Each process, as shown, each process, thermal processes, enzymatic processes, microbiological processes, whatever, have an impact on the odor code. And this is why, so that some of the compounds are probably a bit more formed or degraded, and that means that you get a deviation in the odor profile, and that is recognized. And this is exactly, I think, the advantage. You could, even from the odor code, you could, so to say, backtrack, for example, what happened in the history of the production of that food.
Yeah.
So you could immediately detect any defects that have been generated.
Yeah. So thank you, Professor Hofmann. I'll take the last question. There are a lot of questions again coming in. So I'll take your last thoughts on, can theoretical chemistry play some role in this research work involving flavors? So your insights.
Which one? Organic? Organic?
No, in theoretical chemistry. So
theoretical chemistry.
Yeah.
I think it, in particular now when it comes to order and receptor activation, because the order and receptors have not been crystallized yet. So that means to have in silico discovery or in silico deorphanization of the receptor structures, which of those can detect some of those compounds which are presented here. I think this is where I see a lot of interest, and where theoretical chemistry plays a major role.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Professor Hofmann, for your insightful and illustrative talk and taking up these many questions. So of course, the attendees must have enjoyed it, especially the insights into the sensomics approach. And as you said, that our senses shape our lives in many ways. So that's truly, we believed and we saw it here. So that was a real and nice experience. So just to update you, we had around 100 attendees in this particular sessions, and even we can see around 80 in this session till now, till the question and answer session. So just for the audience, we'll be sending out the certificates via email. And once again, thank you all for your participation, and keep coming up to this platform and enjoy these scientific talks. And thank you so much, Professor Hofmann, again for your time. And we hope we'll be able to reach out to you for other scientific sessions in future, and when things get well soon. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.